Okay, so thank you, Melissa. Melissa, you're on mute.
Goodness, let's play Zoom bingo. Okay, let's try again. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for having me in your Dean's Research Seminar. I'm really excited to share some information with you about open access publishing and submitting accepted versions of journal articles to Research Direct. I'd like to begin with an acknowledgement of country with respect to Aboriginal Cultural Protocol and out of recognition that its campuses occupy their traditional lands. Western Sydney University acknowledges the Darug, the Aurora, the Darawal and the Wurundjeri peoples and thanks them for their support of its work in their lands in the Greater Western Sydney and beyond. Today I'm coming from beautiful Darug land, and if you'd like to, you can pop your location in the chat box as we go along. Okay, so today what we're going to be looking at, to start with, an open access publishing overview. We'll look at the new library read and publish agreements, which are very exciting, and submitting accepted versions of the journal articles to Research Direct and how you can get further support. I'm just going to play with my Zoom screen for a sec. Nope, I might just leave it there. Okay. All right, so let's kick us off with open access publishing. So there are two routes to publishing journal articles. The traditional route is the pay to access version. So readers or institutions or individuals pay an annual subscription fee to access. Authors aren't charged to publish in traditional journals. However, the research is then locked behind a paywall. The other alternative is open access, which is freely available online to all readers. There's lots of different categories of open access and each have different conditions, and some will charge the author. So why publish open access? Well, firstly, it increases your audience. It means that anyone with an internet connection can access your paper regardless of global location, affiliation, or financial background, which means this makes your research much more accessible. Potentially, this can also increase your citations, and in some cases, it can be a faster route to getting published. You may be required to publish in open access due to your grant funding requirements, and also the Western Sydney University policy for open access to research states that you should be sharing your research in an open access publication ideally as soon as possible. So either that's through the green open access, through the repository, or through a fully open access journal. There's some more information on the library website, and there's a link here to the open access policy. I will share the slides with Bronwyn to distribute to the school. So there's going to be a whole bunch of links in here, so you can follow the links out to the other information as well. There's a really helpful guide on the library website to open access publishing, and I highly encourage you to have a look and review the different sections on the guide. There's lots of helpful information there. But when we're looking at open access publishing categories, each category is defined by reader accessibility and the article publishing charges. It's worth researching these conditions for the journal that you intend to publish with, because each category can increase your audience. So there's green, there's diamond, there's gold, there's the hybrids, and bronze and black when you're looking at the different categories. So to start with, let's look at green open access. So green open access is when you go down, usually like the traditional publishing route, you submit with a journal, and then what you need to do is you make the accepted version of the published work available in your subject-based repository or institutional repository. So every institution in Australia has a repository for this purpose. At Western Sydney, ours is called Research Direct. There's also international examples like PubMed Central and Europe PMC. Articles might have a Creative Commons license applied, which specifies how the article can be used. So it's an open to access article. It's free to publish because it's in the traditional model, and it's also free for the readers to access as well. Gold open access is published in a fully open access journal that is indexed in the directory of open access journals. The publisher of the journal provides free and immediate access to the full content of the journal, and the final publisher of the versions of the article in the journal are fully open access. They have to have a Creative Commons license applied, which specifies how the article can be used. In many cases, the publisher charges an article processing charge. There are some freely available open access gold journal articles, but they're pretty rare. Diamond open access is even rarer a little bit. This one is free for readers to access and for authors to publish in. It's community driven and supported by institutions or national or regional infrastructure. You might also have heard it being referred to as platinum open access. So this one's free to read, free to publish, community driven, but like a diamond, they're pretty rare, these ones. With Plan S and in Europe, this is becoming more of a driving force, and there'll probably be more information and more of this type of open access coming in the future for Australia. Hybrid open access is a different kind of open access again. So this type of open access, you make just the individual article freely available, but the other articles in the journal are still part of the normal subscription model. So you, in most cases, will pay to publish this article as open access. That will make it free for that particular article for the readers to read, but other articles in the journal still cost for subscription, either with libraries or institutions or individuals. So it's a little bit double dipping from the publisher's perspective. They charge both the authors and the libraries and other subscribers, but it can be a good way to get your article out there and freely available. The Western Sydney Library distributed open access APC funding cannot be used for a hybrid open access journal. Bronze open access is free to read on the publisher's page, but without a clearly identifiable license. So it's can't be considered fully open access. It's a little bit more murky, this one. And because it doesn't have a license, it means that it's not shareable and it's not reusable. Black open access is to be avoided. This is things that are illegally downloaded, pirated versions. You might be familiar with Sci-Hub. That's an example of black open access. Okay, on the library page for the library guide to open access, there's a great breakdown of open access vocabulary terms because there's quite a bit of terminology that comes with open access. So I'd highly recommend you have a look at that page there just for a breakdown to all the different terms. So both the major funders in Australia for research, the NHMRC and the ARC, specify that any peer-reviewed journal articles or conference papers arising from research projects must be funded, that they funded must be made openly accessible in an institutional repository. So for us, that's Research Direct, or another accessible location like an open access gold or hybrid journal article within 12 months from the date of publication. The metadata from the peer-reviewed publications must also be made openly available via a research repository like Research Direct as soon as possible, but it has to be within 3 months from the date of publication. Requirements may not be able to be met in some cases because of legal or contractual obligations, but if a version of the published output can't be made available openly, the researcher must say so in the grant research report. And there's a link there to the open access policy for the NHMRC and the ARC there. Okay, so when you're looking at the NHMRC and the ARC's open access requirements, which version do you have to use? So they accept the accepted version, which is also sometimes known as the author accepted manuscript, or the postprint version, which has been accepted for publication and made available through the author's institutional repository, so Research Direct for us. So this is the version of the paper after peer reviewed, but not before it's published. They also accept the published version, so that's also called the version of record. So that's the final version with the pagination, the formatting, and the final copyright on it there. The publisher's version is only acceptable if it's fully open access with an appropriate license as well. So you couldn't use, say, a bronze open access article to fulfill this obligation. Okay, so when you're looking at creating your publishing strategy, I'd recommend you have a look at this simple open access journal publishing checklist. There's a link out here to help you evaluate different journals. I'd also highly recommend you have a look at the library's Journal Finder tool. And some of the people here today have walked you through Journal Finder. There's a help guide on the library website. If you'd like some more help about how to use it, you're very welcome to email me and set up a time to review the resource. It's an excellent resource to help you review and look at the different factors when you're comparing different journals. You can also have a look at the DOAJ for high quality peer-reviewed open access journals. And what I highly recommend is that you consult Sherpa Romeo for a journal by journal basis breakdown. So if I jump into Sherpa Romeo now, Okay, and you just search with the journal title. So if I do Nurse Education Today. Give it a sec to roll through. There we go. Okay, so Sherpa Romeo is a fantastic resource that breaks down the different sharing capabilities and open access policies for individual journals. So it usually starts with the published version option. So whenever it's got the little pound symbol, that's one that has a charge, so an APC applied. So there's a couple of different ways you can pay to make it open access within this particular journal. But what I'm looking for here is if there's an accepted version of option. So if I open up the plus symbol, and then I can see for this particular one, you're allowed to put it on the accepted version. So that's the one that's after the peer review, but before it's had the pagination and the typesetting and all that sort of stuff applied. You can put it on your author homepage. So if you have your own website, which I know Hannah has her own website, you're welcome to put that up there, and you can do that as soon as you like. You can also put up the accepted version in a non-commercial institutional repository, so Research Direct. There is an embargo for this one, so that's 12 months. So after 12 months, you can put the accepted version of your journal article up on the Research Direct repository, and that makes it freely available to anybody with an internet connection, which is pretty cool because you don't have to pay for that one. Okay. My suggestion would be to create a publishing plan, including a list of preferred journals for evaluation, and have a good think about where's the best fit for your journal. Obviously, things like whether it's a Q1 or a Q journal are important, but also you're more likely to get citations, get your research out there if it's in the journal where the right type of people are already reading it. And also where it's indexed as well. So where, which sort of databases is it available in, if it's a subscription model, that sort of stuff is also important too. If you need more help in working out where's the best place for your journal, shoot me an email and I'm happy to set up times to meet with individual researchers. Okay, so the new kid on the block at the moment is transformative agreement. So that's looking at a new model of publishing rather than a read to pay version. We're instead looking at a fee to both publish and to read within. So an example of that at the moment is the new library read and publish agreements, which have only just come out this week. And literally the ink is still wet on the agreements. So this is something that the library is starting to look into. We have 3 that we're going to be using for this year. And it's through the Council of Australian University Librarians. So it's a shift from a pay to read model to a pay to publish and read. Research outputs are available to public, industry, practitioners, government and developing countries. And it supports a diverse ecosystem through agreements with small and mid-sized large publishers. Now, I know there's a lot of stuff on this slide. Don't stress, you can have a look at the PDF later on if you're keen. So at the moment and in the past, the library has distributed funds from the Research Office for article processing charges for open access articles. And in those cases, they had to be a fully open access journal and it had to meet the ERA definition of research. It had to be a Western Sydney author with affiliation and it had to have a minimum journal ranking. The new read and publish deals mainly cover hybrid journals and the authors have to use their Western Sydney University institutional email address. Okay, so we've got 3. There's one with Springer. There's just over 2,000 art journals within the Springer set that you can use. There are 27 within MA Healthcare, and that's probably the most pertinent for School of Nursing and Midwifery researchers. There's the 27 titles I can link out here, and there's also the Brill version of read and publish agreement, and there's just over 300. Some of them are hybrid, some of them are gold. There's some more information on the library website here. I'll quickly jump out and show you the titles that we've got. So for this funding agreement, there's no charge to you as the author. The read and publish agreement covers the full fees that would be required. So we've got things like the British Journal of Nursing. There's also the British Journal of Midwifery. They are mainly English titles in here. There's also things like we have down the bottom, nursing and residential care, practice nursing, and there's some animal stuff too. So there's a fair few there that I think hopefully would be pertinent for the school. But as I say, this is new for us. We're dipping our toe into the read and publish agreements, and we'll see how it goes in terms of a funding source and how well effective it is. Okay, what else have I got? Discounted APCs. So some publishers are currently offering discounted article processing charges when you submit an article for open access publication using a Western Sydney email address. So Biomed Central and Spring Open's offering 15% discount. Elsevier's got a 12.5% discount, and MDPI, probably the other relevant one for you guys, it's got a 10% discount. And for anybody that's looked at the fees that are involved for an individual APC, a 10% discount can make a fair amount of difference. It's pretty big dollars we're looking at here. Okay, so when we're looking at read and publish agreements, they're a form of transformative agreements, and it makes your research outputs more globally accessible through a publisher's platform. So for you as an author, you submit to your journal as usual, and then you follow the process there. We've had one go through the read and publish agreement so far, and it was pretty smooth. But there's some more information, as I say, on the library website. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to shoot me an email as well. Okay, so we talked about accepted versions before, so we're going to go into a bit more detail now about how to submit accepted versions of journal articles to Research Direct to make your open access green category. Okay, so there's different steps when you're looking at publishing with a journal. So initially you submit to the publisher, that's called the submitted version. It then goes through a peer review process, and you go between your reviewers, and you then end up with a version that's been through that peer review process. That's then called the accepted manuscript. It's sometimes called the author's accepted manuscript. It's sometimes also called the post-print version. This is the version that you want when you're submitting your accepted version to Research Direct to make it freely available. After that, it then goes to copy editing and typesetting. You then have the proof, and then the final version is called the version of record. So that's like the PDF version that you would see on the publisher's website. Once you've crossed that middle period, you can't go backwards. And for the publishers, it's really not in their financial interest to give you the accepted manuscript version. So you usually have to ask. Some will do it as a matter of course, but not always. So my suggestion would be to make sure that after your peer review is finished, you ask your publisher for the accepted manuscript version. So you've got it and you can send it to Research Direct. Okay, so when to ask for that accepted version? It's after all the peer review changes. The content of the accepted version should be the same as the final published version. There can't be any difference. And it's not been through the copy editing and typesetting process. You need to ask for this from the editor if you haven't been provided with one after it's been accepted for publishing, and it's really important that you ask. Some publishers in the past, so it's been Wiley and Elsevier, have made for a very brief period the accepted versions available on their web pages. But that's not always the case, and we can't always rely on it. It's up to you, the author, to request the accepted version. The library can't do this for you. And as I say, once we've passed that period, you can't go backwards. So it's important to ask. Okay, so I thought it might be helpful for researchers to see what an example of an accepted version, what it looks like. So this is one from the School of Nursing, and it typically will have a watermark on it. So I'm just going to jump into Research Direct here. And I'm going to go into the PDF. Give it a sec to download. Okay, so you've got the initial information on the first page. And then down here, I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller. You can see the watermark there for the accepted version. So this is one that was from Christine and Kathy. And you can see here, they've put a sort of a disclaimer. So it's saying it's the accepted version for publication. It's been through peer review, but it hasn't been through the copy editing process. And if I scroll down here, you can sort of see it looks a little bit different from like a standard journal article. It doesn't have sort of the logos and the pagination and that sort of stuff that you would have for the final version of the author version of record. Okay. All right, so how to check which restrictions for submitting accepted versions apply to your particular journal. Like we looked at before, jump out to the Sherpa Romeo page. I don't think I've come across a journal that's not been in Sherpa Romeo that has open access elements to it, and look for that accepted version and what the restrictions are. Sometimes it's straight away, sometimes it's within 12 months. Not all journals necessarily allow an accepted version to be submitted, so it's part of your responsibilities is also to determine what the restrictions are on your paper and how it can be freely shared through open access versions. There will be specific journal author guidelines as well that you can have a look at for your particular journal. And you can also ask the library for help if you're not quite sure which type of journal category it might be coming under as well. Okay, so there's lots of advantages of loading your accepted version to Research Direct. So it means that anybody with an internet connection can access the full text of your paper for free. It means your audience is greatly enhanced. Potentially your citations can be greatly increased. And it means also that the research that you've been working on and that the university is funded is made publicly accessible, because that's university and government money that's been put towards that research. So all positives, no downsides to putting accepted versions in Research Direct. Okay, so if you need further support, you can contact me as your school librarian. Best way to get to me is via email or via Teams. You can call my desk phone, but I'm not always in the office, so email's probably best. And there's some reference lists there, and I can see there's some questions in the chat. So I'm just going to jump up there now. Brahma, do you want to turn off the recording now?